The unexpected message arrived during Commander Daeho's morning briefing. As Earth's most decorated tactical officer, he had faced dangerous missions across the solar system, but the glowing holographic invitation floating above his desk made his heart race. To the representatives of Earth, the Galactic Council extends an invitation to participate in the 127th Galactic War Games. Daeho read the message 3 times. Humanity had only joined the interstellar community 5 years ago, discovering they were among the youngest species in a galaxy, teeming with civilizations thousands of years more advanced. The War Games, held every 50 years, were legendary, a prestigious competition where species demonstrated their military prowess through complex simulations. "They've invited us as a joke," said Admiral Park during the emergency meeting. "The Council sees us as primitives who barely mastered space travel. But we can't refuse," General Lee added. "It's a diplomatic opportunity." Daeho stepped forward. "Let me lead our team. Even if we fail, we'll learn from advanced civilizations." 2 weeks later, Daeho stood in a stark white room selecting his team from Earth's finest officers. His choices surprised many G1, a quiet woman with penetrating eyes and 15 years in special forces. "She thinks differently than any soldier I've met," Daeho explained. Hyun Ki, a physicist whose theories on particle interactions had revolutionized ship shielding. "We need someone who understands the science behind war," he said. Mi Sun, a pilot, whose reflexes and spatial awareness tested beyond human norms. She flies like her ship is part of her body. And finally, Tae Min, a systems specialist who had once hacked 3 military networks simultaneously. He sees patterns where others see noise. The journey to Proxima Centauri took 8 days aboard, the fastest human ship. When they arrived, Daeho's team fell silent at their first sight of the War Game Station, a massive structure that dwarfed anything humans had built, resembling a silver snowflake 20 kilometers across. Their human-designed uniforms and equipment looked embarrassingly primitive next to the other competitors. The blue-scaled Volan delegation glided by, their bodies moving with perfect grace. The insectoid Marek skittered past without acknowledgement. The crystalline Ari floated rather than walked, their translucent bodies pulsing with internal light. "They're not even trying to hide their contempt," G1 whispered, as they walked through the grand hallway toward the orientation chamber. Tae Min nodded. "I counted 17 species so far. None of them look impressed to see us." A tall, four-armed being with metallic skin approached. "Humans," it said, its voice surprisingly warm. "I am Keltor, representative of the Galactic Council. Welcome to the Games." Daeho bowed slightly. "We're honored to participate." Keltor's upper arms made a gesture that might have been amusement. "The honor is premature. Please follow me to meet the Arbiter." The Arbiter waited in a circular chamber. Unlike the other aliens, this being had no clear physical form, just a swirling column of blue-green light that narrowed and widened as it spoke. "Earthlings," it said, the sound seeming to come from everywhere at once. "You are the newest species to join these games in 12,000 years. "We understand we're inexperienced," Daeho replied, "but we're eager to learn." The light column pulsed. "The War Games test military doctrine and promote understanding between civilizations. All simulations are non-lethal, but extraordinarily realistic." "What are our chances?" Mi-sun asked boldly. The Arbiter's light dimmed slightly. "In 27 previous games, no first-time participant has advanced beyond preliminary rounds. Many species view your inclusion as a courtesy only." Hyun Ki stepped forward. "You mean they think we're just curiosities?" "Correct," the Arbiter acknowledged. "The Volan have won 6 consecutive games. The Mrek and Ari share second place. Historically, humans are not expected to succeed." As they left the chamber, Daeho gathered his team in a huddle. "They've already decided we'll fail," he said quietly. "Then they've made their first mistake," G1 replied with a small smile. "Underestimating humans has never ended well for anyone." Daeho nodded, looking at his team's determined faces. "The games begin tomorrow. Tonight we study the rulebook, every word of it." As they walked toward their quarters, Tae Min suddenly laughed. The others looked at him questioningly. "Sorry," he said. I just realized something funny. They invited us thinking we're primitive. But throughout human history, who's been more dangerous? The technologically advanced empire or the underdog? Fighting with nothing to lose? Deho smiled for the first time since arriving. Exactly. Let them think we're here as curiosities. We'll show them what humans can do. The mighty arena dome curved over Team Earth like the inside of a pearl. 27 species arranged their fleet ships in perfect formation, preparing for the first challenge. Deho stood at the command console of their small flagship, hands steady despite his racing heart. Synchronization fleet maneuvers will begin in 30 seconds, announced the Arbiter's voice. Teams will be scored on precision, efficiency, and adherence to classical formation principles. Mi-sun, at the pilot station, looked worried. Our ships are slower and less responsive than theirs. The turns will be difficult. Do your best, Deho said. That's all we can do today. The alert sounded, and the arena filled with movement. The blue-scaled Volan ships moved as one organism, creating complex geometric patterns with flawless precision. The crystalline Ari vessels left trails of light as they wove intricate spirals. Even the bulky Mrek ships performed with surprising grace. By contrast, the human vessels struggled. Their engines lacked the fine control of alien technology. When Mi-sun tried a complex turn, 2 support ships fell out of formation. When they attempted to correct, 3 more ships drifted too far. We look like children playing with toys, Ji-won muttered, watching the scoreboard where Earth's point total remained at 0. The Arbiter's voice seemed to hold a note of pity when it announced, "Synchronization challenge complete. Earth team. Last place." Later that day, the tactical simulation began. Each team operated in a virtual environment, commanding forces against a standardized enemy. "Something's wrong with our communications," Taemin said, adjusting his headset. "I'm hearing static." Hyun-ki pointed to the Volan team across the room. "They aren't speaking at all. Look at their eyes. They're using telepathic communication." Dae-ho watched as the insectoid Mrek team connected their neural systems directly to the simulation. The crystalline Ari seemed to share a hive mind, with perfect coordination. "We're at a massive disadvantage," Ji-won said. "We have to speak our commands, while they think them." Despite their best efforts, the human team finished second to last, barely beating a gaseous species whose physical form made it difficult to interact with the controls. That evening, Team Earth gathered in their quarters. The mood was low. "We can't compete on their terms," Mi-sun said. "Their technology is too advanced." Dae-ho sat quietly, reading through the massive rulebook for the 3rd time. Something had caught his attention during the day's events. The Volan, despite their overwhelming advantages, never deviated from their standard tactics. The Mrek, for all their neural connections, followed the same attack patterns documented in historical records. "Did you notice something strange today?" he asked. "Every species follows rigid doctrines. The Volan use the same formation sequence they've used for 600 years. They're predictable," Ji-won nodded, "but that doesn't help us if we can't match their speed or coordination." Dae-ho held up the rulebook. "I've been reading this all night. It's over 2,000 pages of regulations. But there's something important missing." "What?" asked Taemin. "Nowhere does it say we have to use standard tactics. Nowhere does it prohibit creative interpretation of the rules." Hyun-ki's eyes widened. "You're suggesting we find loopholes?" "Not exactly," Dae-ho replied. "The rules define what we can't do. Everything else is permitted." He stood up and walked to the holographic display of tomorrow's challenge, a ground combat simulation. "The aliens have been fighting the same way for thousands of years. Their tactics are perfect, against enemies who play by the same rules." "But humans have never played by the rules," Mi-sun said, beginning to smile. "Exactly." Dae-ho pointed to specific sections of the rulebook. "The simulation limits weapon types and force sizes, but it doesn't restrict how we use them." Ji-won leaned forward. "Guerrilla tactics instead of set-piece battles. Psychological warfare instead of direct confrontation," added Taemin. Dae-ho looked at each team member, his eyes bright with determination. "They expect us to play their way and lose. Let's show them how humans wage war." The team worked through the night, developing strategies no alien would expect. As dawn approached, bringing the next challenge, A new energy filled the room. The dangerous hope of underdogs with nothing to lose and everything to prove. Morning light filtered through the enormous windows of the simulation chamber. The human team stood ready as the Arbiter announced the day's challenge. Ground combat scenario will commence in 2 minutes. Each team will defend a fortress while simultaneously attempting to capture their opponent's position. Taemin worked frantically. At his terminal, during the night, he had discovered something interesting in the simulation parameters, a small section allowing teams to adjust certain environmental settings within specific ranges. "Are you sure this is allowed?" Mi-sun whispered. "The rules. State teams may optimize terrain rendering for their species' visual systems," Taemin explained. "I'm just being very thorough about what optimization means." Daeho watched as the simulation loaded. Their opponent today was the four-armed Ketrun, known for overwhelming frontal assaults with perfect coordination. The battlefield materialized, wide valley between two fortresses. "They expect us to meet them in the middle," Ji-won said. "Classic engagement, force against force." "Which is exactly what we won't do," Daeho replied. "Ready for plan chaos?" His team nodded. The starting signal sounded. Immediately, the Ketrun forces marched forward in perfect formation, 800 warriors moving as one, their silver armor gleaming. They crossed the valley floor with mechanical precision, but the human forces were nowhere to be seen. "Where are the Earth warriors?" asked the Ketrun commander, his voice broadcasting through the simulation. Instead of deploying their forces in the open, Ji-won had hidden their soldiers in small groups throughout the rocky terrain. While the Ketrun advanced, human teams circled behind them, avoiding direct contact. "First surprise," Daeho ordered. Mi-sun activated their combat drones. Instead of arming them with standard weapons, she had reprogrammed them to emit specific frequencies, technically classified as electronic countermeasures in the rulebook, but targeted precisely at Ketrun's sensory organs. The effect was immediate. The perfect Ketrun formation faltered as warriors covered their auditory receptors, disoriented by sounds humans couldn't even hear. "What trickery is this?" demanded the Ketrun commander. While the enemy forces stumbled, human teams darted from hiding places, striking quickly before disappearing again. They never engaged directly, instead focusing on disrupting communications and supply lines. "Humans, this is not proper warfare." The Ketrun commander protested. Hyun-ki had modified the terrain rendering to create small visual distortions in the background, nothing that affected gameplay directly, but enough to confuse enemies used to perfect visual input. "Second surprise," Daeho said calmly. Ji-won deployed smoke generators, allowed under the rules as visual obscurement devices, but used in ways no alien had considered. Rather than creating defensive cover, the humans used them to simulate larger forces, creating ghost armies that confused enemy sensors. Within 20 minutes, the Ketrun fortress fell, not from direct assault, but from small teams that had infiltrated through unguarded access points while the main force was distracted. "Simulation complete," announced the Arbiter. "Earth team victorious." The chamber erupted in protest. Representatives from multiple species surrounded the Arbiter, demanding the human victory be invalidated. "They cheated," insisted the Ketrun commander. "They refused to engage in proper combat." The Arbiter's light form pulsed as it reviewed the simulation data. After several tense minutes, it expanded to full height. "I find no violations of the rules," it announced. The Earth team employed unconventional tactics but broke no regulations. Their victory stands. The human team tried to contain their excitement as they left the chamber. In the corridor, they could hear aliens discussing them in urgent tones. "I accessed their historical records," one Volan was saying. "Humans have never developed a consistent military doctrine. They adapt constantly, changing tactics with each generation. Their history is chaotic," added Amrek. "They fight differently in every war, learning from each defeat." Daeho gathered his team in their quarters. "They're studying us now," he said. "Tomorrow will be harder. They'll be prepared for unconventional tactics." "Then we'll be even more unconventional," Mi-sun replied with a smile. For the first time, since the games began, the humans weren't at the bottom of the leaderboard. Several species were now watching them with something new in their alien eyes: caution. A hush fell over the observation deck as the finalists for the grand simulation were announced. 26 species had been eliminated. Only 2 remained. Earth. Team versus the Tark Collective, the arbiter announced, its light form pulsing with what might have been surprise. The Tark Collective had won the war games for 5 consecutive centuries. They were a species of tall, silver-skinned beings with perfect mathematical minds. Their commander, Zatil, regarded the humans with 6 golden eyes that blinked in sequence. "Your tactics are unusual," Zatil said to Deho before the simulation. "But against true masters of warfare, chaos is merely noise." Deho bowed respectfully. "We look forward to learning from your expertise." The grand simulation was the most complex challenge, combining Space Fleet Command, ground forces, and resource management across an entire star system. As both teams took their positions, the massive chamber darkened and a miniature solar system materialized around them. "Begin," said the arbiter. The Tark deployed with textbook precision. Their warships moved in geometric patterns so perfect they seemed to dance. Their resource gatherers established mining operations on resource-rich planets with mathematical efficiency. By contrast, the human deployment looked almost random. Their ships moved in patterns that seemed to make no sense, changing direction, without obvious reason. "What are they doing?" whispered spectators in the observation deck. Hyun-Ki worked frantically at his console. During their preparation, he had discovered something in the physics engine of the simulation, a subtle interaction between certain energy particles that could create a cascading effect when properly triggered. "Ready for blindside," Deho ordered. Hyun-Ki activated the sequence. Their ships released a specific pattern of energy pulses, technically classified as standard emissions under the rules, but arranged in a way that created a resonance effect. In the simulation, the result was immediate. The Tark sensors flickered as the particle cascade temporarily blinded their detection systems. For 30 crucial seconds, they couldn't track the human fleet. "Sensor malfunction," reported the Tark second-in-command. "Recalibrating. Now," Deho said calmly. Mi-sun executed the most shocking move of the games. She deliberately sacrificed half of their fleet, sending ships directly into the Tark defensive line. As the Tark focused on destroying these vessels, the remainder of the human fleet circled behind and attacked their vulnerable supply ships. "This is illogical," Zatil protested. "They are destroying their own forces." In the ground battle component, G1 employed equally unorthodox tactics. Rather than establishing proper defensive perimeters, human ground forces used the terrain in ways the simulator hadn't anticipated, hiding troops in geothermal vents. That masked their heat signatures, using gravity wells to accelerate drop pods beyond their design speeds. The Tark forces, despite their superior numbers and technology, couldn't adapt quickly enough to the constantly changing human approach. Their tactics, perfected over centuries, assumed opponents would follow similar logic. Midway through the simulation, Zatil's golden eyes widened as understanding dawned. "They have no doctrine," he said to his officers. "Every move is created in the moment." Deho's team kept changing their strategy, abandoning successful approaches the moment the Tark began to counter them, shifting to new unexpected tactics before patterns could be recognized. "Sacrifice the remaining orbital platforms," Deho ordered in the final phase. "All of them?" Mi-sun asked, surprised. "All of them, trust me." As the platforms exploded, their debris created a field that disrupted the Tark fleet formation just long enough for the human main force to break through and target the Tark command center. The simulation ended with flashing lights. The score appeared on the main display. For the first time in 500 years, the Tark Collective had been defeated. "This cannot be," Zatil said, his voice hollow. "We are perfect." Their strategy was chaos. Deho looked at his exhausted team. "Not chaos," he replied quietly. "Humanity." The final day of the Galactic War Games arrived with tension thick in the air. The observation deck was packed with representatives from every competing species, their attention fixed on the 2 remaining teams, the Tark Collective and the humans. The Galactic Council members watched from their elevated platform, their reactions mixed. The insectoid Mrek delegate gestured excitedly with 4 limbs. "These humans show remarkable adaptability. Perhaps we underestimated their potential. Or perhaps they represent a dangerous element," countered the crystalline Ari representative. "Their unpredictability makes them impossible to anticipate." As Daiho led his team to their command station, he noticed the divided reactions. Some aliens looked at the humans with new respect, others with clear concern. The TARC commander Zatil stood completely still, all 6 golden eyes focused on complex tactical displays. "He's been studying our previous matches," G1 whispered. "They'll be ready for our tricks." "Good," Daiho replied with a small smile. "Because today's plan relies on exactly that." The Arbiter's form expanded to fill the center of the chamber. "The final simulation will now commence. Victory conditions, complete control of the central planet, or elimination of all opposing forces." The artificial star system materialized around them, more detailed than ever before. At its center glowed a blue-green planet. The objective. "Begin," said the Arbiter. The TARC forces moved immediately, deploying in a modified formation clearly designed to counter human unpredictability. Their ships formed a defensive shell, rather than the aggressive patterns they had used in previous rounds. "They're expecting chaos," Daiho observed. "So let's give them order instead." To everyone's surprise, the human fleet arranged itself in a perfect textbook formation, exactly the kind of predictable pattern the humans had avoided throughout the games. "What are they doing?" murmured the watching aliens. "They're fighting, like the TARC now." The TARC commander hesitated, clearly suspicious of the sudden change in human tactics. After careful analysis, the TARC ships advanced cautiously, maintaining tight formation. Daiho waited until the TARC were fully committed, then gave his first real order. "Execute Broken Mirror." The perfect human formation shattered into apparent confusion. Ships scattered in all directions, some fleeing at maximum speed. From the observation deck, it looked like panic. The TARC pursued what appeared to be a retreating, defeated enemy. But as their formation stretched thin during the pursuit, Daiho revealed the trap. "Phase 2, he ordered. The scattered human ships suddenly reversed course, converging on isolated TARC vessels from multiple angles. What had looked like a disorganized retreat was actually a carefully choreographed dance, designed to separate the mathematically perfect TARC formation. "They tricked us," Zatil realized too late. The order was misinformation, the chaos was planned. As the space battle raged, Hyun Ki implemented the ground phase of their strategy. Rather than landing troops on the central planet, he deployed automated mining equipment, technically allowed as resource-gathering units. But these had been reprogrammed to excavate in patterns that destabilized the terrain around TARC landing zones. "This is not a recognized military doctrine," protested the TARC second-in-command. Daiho watched as the simulation unfolded according to their plan. The TARC forces, bound by millennia of doctrine, couldn't adapt quickly enough to counter tactics they'd never encountered. Each time they adjusted to one human approach, the humans would abandon it for something new. In the final phase, Mi-sun executed a series of high-risk jumps that no rational commander would attempt, maneuvers with barely enough clearance to avoid collisions. The unpredictable flight paths broke through the last TARC defensive line. The simulation ended with human forces securing the central planet. A moment of stunned silence fell over the chamber before the Arbiter announced, "Final simulation complete. Earth team victorious." The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaotic discussion. Daiho's exhausted team embraced each other as the reality of their achievement sank in. Later, at the formal ceremony, the Arbiter addressed the assembled species. The human victory came not from superior technology or resources, but from seeing possibilities others could not imagine. They did not break our rules, they simply understood them differently. As Daiho accepted the ancient symbol of victory, a senior council member approached him. The elder being's translucent skin revealed swirling patterns beneath. "We invited you as curiosities," the elder admitted. "We leave recognizing you as dangerous innovators. Your species thinks unlike any we have encountered." Daiho bowed respectfully. "We still have much to learn from the galaxy." "And perhaps," the elder replied, "the galaxy has something to learn from humans. Perhaps the true test was never about following rules, but about knowing when to bend them.